Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop doing what everyone expects of you, the world suddenly turns against you? The phone calls become colder. The invitations stop coming. The people who once celebrated your compliance now whisper about your selfishness behind closed doors. You sit alone, wondering if living authentically is worth losing the approval you spent years cultivating. But what if I told you that this rejection, this uncomfortable isolation, is exactly where your true power begins? What if the hatred you face for refusing to obey is actually the universe's way of redirecting you towards something infinitely more valuable than human approval? The ancient Taoist masters understood something that modern society desperately wants to hide from you. They knew that the path to genuine fulfillment requires breaking free from the invisible chains of social expectation, even when that freedom comes at the cost of popularity. For over 2,000 years, Taoism has taught that true strength lies not in conforming to external pressures, but in aligning with the natural flow of your own authentic nature. This is the Wu Wei principle, the art of effortless action that emerges when you stop forcing yourself to be what others demand and start becoming who you truly are. When Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, he wasn't writing for people who wanted to fit in. He was writing for those brave enough to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to be criticized for choosing their own path over the well-worn tracks of social conformity. He understood that the moment you begin living according to your inner wisdom, rather than external validation, you become a threat to everyone who has sacrificed their authenticity for acceptance. Your freedom becomes a mirror that reflects their imprisonment, and mirrors are rarely welcomed by those who prefer to live in comfortable illusions. Let me share with you the profound truths that emerge when you embrace the Taoist way, even when it means standing against the tide of popular opinion. These are the principles that will transform your relationship with rejection and help you understand why being hated for your authenticity is often a sign that you are finally on the right path. 1. Embrace the power of Wu Wei over people-pleasing. The concept of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action, is perhaps the most misunderstood principle in Taoist philosophy. Most people think it means doing nothing, being passive or avoiding responsibility. But Wu Wei is actually about learning to act in harmony with your true nature, rather than forcing yourself to behave in ways that drain your energy and compromise your integrity. When you practice Wu Wei, you stop pushing yourself into social situations that feel wrong. Stop saying yes when your body is screaming no, and stop pretending to enjoy conversations that leave you feeling empty and depleted. Consider how exhausting it is to constantly monitor your words, adjust your personality, and suppress your genuine reactions to avoid offending others. This is the opposite of Wu Wei. It is forced action, artificial behavior designed to maintain approval rather than express truth. When you begin practicing Wu Wei in your relationships and social interactions, you naturally become more selective about where you invest your energy. You stop attending events that bore you, stop engaging in gossip that feels toxic, and stop nodding along with opinions that contradict your deepest convictions. This shift inevitably creates distance between you and people who were only comfortable with the version of you that existed to serve their needs. The beautiful paradox of Wu Wei is that the less you try to please everyone, the more genuinely attractive you become to the right people. Your energy becomes focused and authentic rather than scattered and performative. You start attracting relationships based on genuine compatibility rather than mutual pretense. But this transition period, where you are no longer the predictable people pleaser, but have not yet found your authentic tribe, can feel incredibly lonely. The Taoist masters knew this loneliness well. They often spent years in solitude, not because they hated people, but because they understood that temporary isolation was necessary to develop the strength to stand firm in their truth when surrounded by pressure to conform. 2. Cultivate the wisdom of strategic withdrawal. Taoism teaches us about the power of retreat, not as defeat, but as a conscious choice to preserve your energy for what truly matters. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the sage who knows when to advance and when to withdraw, understanding that timing and positioning are more important than constant engagement. In a world that values extroversion and constant availability, choosing to withdraw from situations that do not serve your highest good is often seen as antisocial or selfish. But the Taoist understanding of withdrawal is profoundly different from simple avoidance or isolation. When you practice strategic withdrawal, you are making conscious choices about where and when to engage based on your inner wisdom rather than social pressure. This might mean leaving family gatherings early when the energy becomes toxic, declining invitations to events that drain you, or simply choosing not to engage in arguments that serve no purpose other than to prove your point. Each act of withdrawal creates space for you to reconnect with your center, to remember what you value, and to gather the energy needed for meaningful engagement when the right opportunities arise. The world will often interpret your withdrawal as rejection, and in many cases, they are correct. You are rejecting the version of social engagement that requires you to sacrifice your peace of mind for the comfort of others. You are rejecting the idea that you must be constantly available to validate other people's choices and opinions. You are rejecting the belief that your worth is determined by how much inconvenience you are willing to endure to maintain superficial connections. This rejection feels threatening to people who have built their lives around these very concepts, and their negative reaction is often immediate and intense. But here is what the critics of your withdrawal do not understand. By learning when to step back, you are developing the capacity for deeper, more meaningful connection when you choose to engage. Your presence becomes more valuable because it is given freely rather than compelled by guilt or obligation. Your words carry more weight because they emerge from a place of choice rather than compulsion. Your energy becomes magnetic because it is no longer diluted by forcing yourself to be everywhere and everything to everyone. 3. Understand the difference between being needed and being valued. One of the most painful realizations on the Taoist path is discovering how many of your relationships were built on utility rather than genuine appreciation. When you stop being the person who always says yes, who always accommodates, who always puts others' needs before your own, you quickly discover who truly values you as a person and who simply valued the services you provided. This discovery can be heartbreaking, but it is also liberating in ways that transform your entire approach to human connection. The Tao Te Ching teaches us that the highest form of giving comes from fullness rather than depletion. When you give from a place of genuine abundance, your generosity flows naturally and sustainably. But when you give from a place of trying to earn love, approval, or acceptance, your generosity becomes a form of transaction that ultimately leaves both parties unsatisfied. The person receiving your forced generosity senses the underlying neediness and obligation, while you feel resentful that your sacrifices are not adequately appreciated or reciprocated. Breaking this cycle requires the courage to disappoint people who have become accustomed to your automatic compliance. It means saying no to requests that feel manipulative, setting boundaries around your time and energy, and refusing to participate in the subtle games of emotional manipulation that masquerade as normal social interaction. When you make these changes, the people who valued you primarily for your usefulness will often react with anger, guilt trips, or attempts to shame you back into compliance. They may accuse you of being selfish, ungrateful, or having changed for the worse. But the people who truly value you as a person will respect your boundaries and adjust their expectations accordingly. They will appreciate the authenticity of your selective yes because they understand that it makes your voluntary engagement more meaningful. They will support your growth even when it means less convenience for them because they care more about your well-being than about maintaining access to your services. Learning to distinguish between these two types of relationships is essential for anyone seeking to live authentically. Think about how often you have exhausted yourself trying to maintain relationships that were fundamentally one-sided. How many times have you canceled plans you genuinely wanted to pursue in order to be available for people who would never extend the same consideration to you? How much of your life energy has been spent managing other people's emotions, solving problems they should handle themselves, or listening to complaints about situations they have no intention of changing? The Taoist path asks you to recognize these patterns not with judgment, but with compassion for yourself and the courage to choose differently. Does any of this resonate with your own experience? Have you found yourself caught between the desire to live authentically and the fear of losing relationships that may not have been as genuine as you believed? If these words are speaking to something deep in your soul, I want you to know that you are not alone in this struggle. Write in the comments below, "I choose authenticity over approval," and share one small step you are taking toward honoring your true self. Your courage might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today to begin their own journey toward freedom. 4. Embrace the strength found in apparent weakness. Taoist philosophy has a profound understanding of what the modern world considers weakness. The Tao Te Ching repeatedly uses images of water, softness, and yielding to illustrate the ultimate power. Water does not fight the rock, but it eventually carves canyons through mountains. Soft grass grows through concrete while the concrete eventually cracks and crumbles. The yielding branch bends in the storm, while the rigid tree breaks. These are not metaphors for passivity or submission, but for a different kind of strength that works with natural forces rather than against them. When you choose authenticity over approval, you are embracing this water-like strength. You are no longer trying to be the unmovable rock that never bends, never shows vulnerability, never admits uncertainty. Instead, you are learning to be flexible while maintaining your essential nature, adaptable while staying true to your core values. This kind of strength often appears weak to people who equate power with dominance, control, and the ability to force outcomes through sheer will. Your willingness to disappoint people when necessary, to set boundaries that protect your well-being, to say, "I don't know," when you genuinely lack knowledge, to admit when you have made mistakes. These behaviors may be interpreted as weakness by those who mistake rigidity for strength. They see your flexibility and assume you can be manipulated. They see your honesty and assume you can be taken advantage of. They see your boundaries and assume they can be pressured into moving them. What they do not understand is that true flexibility comes from a deep rootedness in your own values, and genuine softness requires tremendous inner strength. The person who can remain calm in the face of criticism, who can maintain their center when surrounded by chaos, who can speak truth even when it is unpopular, is demonstrating a level of strength that most people never develop. This strength does not need to prove itself through aggression or domination. It simply exists, steady and reliable, like water finding its way around obstacles without losing its essential nature. When you embody this kind of strength, it confuses people who are used to dealing with either aggressive dominance or complete submission. Your refusal to play either role challenges their understanding of power dynamics and often triggers defensive reactions. But here is the remarkable thing about this apparent weakness. Over time, it proves to be more effective than force at creating the outcomes you truly desire. Your flexibility allows you to navigate complex situations without creating unnecessary resistance. Your authenticity attracts people who appreciate depth over superficiality. Your boundaries create respect from those capable of understanding healthy relationships. Your willingness to admit uncertainty makes people trust your honesty when you do express confidence about something. You begin to realize that much of what the world calls strength is actually just elaborate forms of weakness disguised as power. 5. Discover the freedom in being misunderstood. Perhaps the most liberating aspect of following the Taoist path is the gradual release from the exhausting need to be understood and approved of by everyone around you. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the sage who is often misunderstood by the masses because conventional wisdom and deeper truth rarely align. The sage understands that being correctly perceived by everyone is not only impossible, but would actually indicate that they are not truly challenging anyone to think beyond their current limitations. When you stop explaining yourself constantly, stop defending your choices to people who are not genuinely interested in understanding them, and stop trying to convince others that your way of living is valid, something magical happens. You discover how much energy you were wasting on futile attempts to control other people's perceptions of you. You realize that most criticism directed at your authentic choices says far more about the critic's limitations than about your decisions. You begin to understand that being misunderstood by people who live unconsciously is often a sign that you are moving in the right direction. This is not about becoming arrogant or dismissive of all feedback. Wise discernment is crucial. There is a significant difference between constructive criticism offered by people who genuinely care about your well-being and reactive judgment from people who feel threatened by your choices. The former comes from a place of love and understanding, even when it challenges you. The latter comes from fear, projection, and the need to justify their own compromises by criticizing your refusal to make similar ones. Learning to distinguish between these two types of feedback is essential for maintaining your sanity while living authentically. Constructive criticism often feels uncomfortable but energizing, challenging you to grow in directions that align with your deeper values. Reactive judgment feels draining and irrelevant, attempting to pull you back into patterns of behavior that no longer serve your evolution. The more clearly you can identify the difference, the more skillfully you can respond to each type of input. The freedom found in being misunderstood extends beyond just protecting yourself from unfair criticism. It also allows you to express ideas, pursue interests, and make choices that might seem unconventional or risky to others. When you are no longer constrained by the need for universal approval, you can explore aspects of life that genuinely fascinate you, even if they do not fit into neat categories that others can easily understand. You can pursue work that feels meaningful rather than just financially optimal. You can choose relationships based on genuine compatibility rather than social status. You can express your thoughts honestly rather than filtering everything through the question of how it will be received. 6. Learn the art of patient timing. The I Ching, one of the foundational texts of Taoist philosophy, teaches extensively about the importance of understanding natural timing and working with the rhythms of change rather than forcing premature action. When you begin living authentically, one of the greatest challenges is learning to trust the timing of your transformation rather than expecting immediate results or instant understanding from others. The world often wants you to change quickly back to what is comfortable for them, or conversely, to prove that your new authenticity is just a phase that will soon pass. But authentic transformation follows natural laws that cannot be rushed. Like a plant growing toward the light, your development toward greater authenticity happens gradually, with periods of rapid growth followed by times of integration and apparent stillness. During the stillness periods, it may seem like nothing is happening, or worse, that you are moving backward. Family members and friends may interpret these quiet periods as evidence that your commitment to living authentically was just a temporary rebellion that is now ending. They may increase pressure during these times, assuming you are weakening and can be convinced to return to your old patterns. Understanding the natural rhythm of change helps you remain steady during these challenging periods. You learn to recognize that external pressure often intensifies right before a breakthrough, that criticism frequently becomes more harsh just before people begin to accept your new way of being. You develop the patience to allow relationships to evolve at their own pace, rather than forcing immediate acceptance or cutting ties prematurely with people who need more time to understand your transformation. This patience extends to your own internal process as well. Living authentically does not mean having perfect clarity about every decision or never feeling uncertain about your choices. It means learning to trust your inner guidance even when the path forward is not entirely clear. It means making decisions based on what feels true for you now while remaining open to continued evolution and learning. It means accepting that some questions cannot be answered intellectually and must be lived into through experience. The art of patient timing also involves recognizing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage and when to withdraw, when to stand firm and when to compromise. These decisions cannot be made through rigid rules, but require the development of intuitive wisdom that emerges from paying attention to the subtle energies of each situation. Sometimes the most powerful response to criticism is a gentle explanation that helps others understand your perspective. Other times, the wisest choice is to simply allow your actions to speak for themselves without offering any explanation at all. 7. Cultivate inner stillness as your source of strength. In a world that equates busyness with importance and constant engagement with caring, choosing to cultivate inner stillness can appear selfish or disengaged. But Taoist philosophy understands that external action without inner stillness leads to frantic activity that accomplishes little of lasting value. The sage acts from a place of deep calm, making decisions from clarity rather than reactivity, responding to situations from wisdom rather than emotion. This inner stillness is not emptiness or disconnection from life. It is a quality of awareness that remains stable regardless of external circumstances. Like the eye of a hurricane, it provides a center of calm from which you can observe and respond to the chaos around you without being swept away by it. When criticism comes, you can listen without immediately becoming defensive. When pressure mounts, you can remain centered while considering your options. When conflict arises, you can respond from wisdom rather than react from fear. Developing this inner stillness requires daily practice and commitment. It might involve meditation, spending time in nature, journaling, or any activity that helps you connect with the unchanging awareness beneath your thoughts and emotions. The specific method matters less than the consistency of your commitment to creating space for silence and reflection in your life. Over time, this practice begins to transform how you relate to everything around you. People who live primarily from reactivity and emotional turbulence often feel uncomfortable around those who embody genuine stillness. Your calm presence may trigger their anxiety or make them aware of their own internal chaos. They may interpret your stillness as judgment, superiority, or disengagement. They may try to pull you into their drama or criticize you for not getting sufficiently excited or upset about situations that they find overwhelming. Understanding this dynamic helps you maintain your center without taking their reactions personally. The beautiful irony is that the more still you become internally, the more effective your external actions become. When you act from clarity rather than compulsion, your choices tend to be more aligned with your deeper values and more likely to create positive outcomes. When you speak from stillness rather than reactivity, your words carry more weight and wisdom. When you love from fullness rather than neediness, your relationships become more nourishing for everyone involved. The stillness that others may interpret as withdrawal or disengagement actually becomes the foundation for more authentic and meaningful connection with life. 8. Embrace the path of the authentic outsider. One of the most difficult but ultimately liberating realizations on the Taoist path is that living authentically often means accepting a certain degree of separation from mainstream culture and conventional thinking. This does not mean becoming antisocial or rejecting all human connection, but it does mean recognizing that your values, priorities, and way of being may no longer align with what most people consider normal or desirable. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the sage as someone who appears foolish to worldly people because their wisdom operates from principles that contradict conventional success metrics. They value simplicity over accumulation, inner development over external achievement, genuine connection over social status. These priorities often make perfect sense to the sage, but appear backward or naive to people who have fully invested in pursuing external validation and material success. Accepting your role as an authentic outsider means making peace with the reality that many people will not understand your choices, even when those choices are clearly improving your life. They may see you leaving a high-paying job that was making you miserable and conclude that you lack ambition. They may see you ending relationships that were draining your energy and decide that you have become selfish. They may see you choosing solitude over superficial socializing and assume that you are becoming antisocial or depressed. The challenge is learning to trust your own experience and wisdom more than the opinions of people who are not living your life or walking your path. This requires developing a strong relationship with your inner guidance and the courage to act on that guidance even when external voices are telling you to choose differently. It means becoming comfortable with the possibility that others may misinterpret your motivations or judge your decisions harshly. But here is what makes this path worthwhile despite its challenges. When you embrace your role as an authentic outsider, you give permission for others who are struggling with similar conflicts to consider choosing authenticity over conformity. Your example becomes a light for people who are tired of pretending to be someone they are not, but have not yet found the courage to change their circumstances. Your willingness to be misunderstood creates space for others to question whether universal approval is worth the cost of personal integrity. You also discover that being an authentic outsider does not mean being completely alone. There are others walking similar paths who will recognize the depth and sincerity of your commitment to truth. These connections may be fewer in number than your previous social circle, but they are often deeper and more nourishing. Quality replaces quantity, and you find that a few genuine relationships built on mutual understanding and shared values are far more satisfying than numerous superficial connections based on convenience and social convention. As we reach the end of this exploration, take a moment to reflect on how differently your life might look if you fully embrace these Taoist principles. Imagine waking up each morning knowing that your primary responsibility is to live authentically rather than to manage other people's opinions of you. Picture yourself moving through your days with the confidence that comes from aligning your actions with your deepest values, regardless of whether others approve of your choices. Consider how much energy would be available for pursuing what genuinely matters to you if you were no longer expending it on maintaining relationships that require you to compromise your integrity. The path we have explored together is not easy, but it is the path toward genuine freedom and fulfillment. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to trust your inner wisdom, even when external voices are loud and critical. It means accepting that you will sometimes be misunderstood, criticized, and even rejected by people who cannot recognize the value of authentic living. But it also means discovering a quality of peace, purpose, and joy that is impossible to achieve while living primarily to please others. The ancient Taoist masters knew that the price of authenticity is often temporary loneliness, but the reward is a life lived in harmony with your true nature. They understood that being hated for your truth is infinitely preferable to being loved for your lies. They recognized that the people who reject your authentic self were never truly seeing you anyway, and their departure makes space for connections that can appreciate the real you. Your journey toward authentic living is not just a personal transformation, it is a contribution to the collective healing of a world that desperately needs examples of people who choose truth over convenience, depth over superficiality, and inner peace over external approval. Every time you choose authenticity despite the cost, you make it slightly easier for others to make similar choices. Every time you remain centered in the face of criticism, you demonstrate that it is possible to maintain your integrity while remaining open-hearted and compassionate. If this message has resonated with something deep inside you, if you recognize yourself in these struggles and aspirations, I invite you to join our community of people who are committed to living authentically according to Taoist wisdom. Subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss new insights that can support your journey toward greater freedom and fulfillment. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone in choosing the more difficult but ultimately more rewarding path of authentic living. And remember, every step you take toward living your truth, no matter how small it might seem, is a victory worth celebrating. The path is long, but you do not walk it alone.